If you've ever looked back at old data or received data and wondered what is going on, you would probably benefit from having a schema. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through the entire process of writing a schema for a sample data set. So again, what is a schema? All data sets are going to have a schema, whether it's implicit or explicit. So you're going to have, this is a data set here. You can see at the very top, I have a bunch of attributes, and a schema is going to take those attributes and describe them in a separate document. So here's my data set that I'm working with. I have my attributes at the top. I have the data that I've collected below. For use with the Semantic Engine, what we do is that when you upload a data set, it's processed locally, but it's going to take the first row and strip it and mine it for headers. So if your headers are not in the first row, you're going to have trouble. So here I am. I have put my headers in the first row. And just for interest, if we can keep an eye on this, we can see that in this column of the data, I have only two choices here. So that is an interesting feature about the data, and I'm going to explain that later. If your data set is large and you're having problems, or maybe it's private information, etc., even though everything is processed locally, what you can do is you can just strip out the data and use the headers. So the Semantic Engine is going to record that information. So on to the Semantic Engine. Then what we do here is we can navigate around. I'm going to come down to quick links, or you can also access it here, expand these things in order to learn a bit more. I'm going to write a schema. So it says, what is my spreadsheet? So here I'm dragging in the data. Those are the three sheets that I had, and I'm going to take the header, make sure it's highlighted in blue. And you can see that no problem, I've extracted my headers. If you were to do it manually, you would just have to type everything out. I've got good header names here. I don't have weird characters or spaces. I'm thinking about a computer always being able to read these attributes. I'm going to give myself a classification and the name of the schema, milk aggregation. And this would be where you would go in for a longer description here. If you're wondering about anything in all of these, we have little pop-ups so that you can understand a bit better. And every page has a help with this page, which also helps you understand what's going on. So on to the next screen here. This is my schema. And again, you can read everything here. I don't have any sensitive information because there's no personally identifying information, but I'm going to just flag the cow just so that we can see how that works. Now, that pop-up at the beginning was saying that as a requirement, the most basic schema must have some kind of data type. So this is where I look at my data and I can say, oh, the animal ID, that was a numeric. The date is some kind of date time, dimension, that was days in milking, that was also a numeric, etc. So I've gone through here and I've filled all of that information in. And this is, remember I was pointing out that milking location. So this is where I want it to be a list. So on the next screen, we're going to see our list. This is where you can put in your entry codes and the English label for it. So often that can be the same thing. If you haven't seen entry codes before, it can really help standardize your data input, catch typos and things like that. So if we have a look here, I'm going to show you an example of entry codes. This is provided by NSERC. And they've got a whole bunch of codes for research classification, and then they have the label for it. If you're looking at a data set that would be using these codes, maybe I would say, oh, the award year and the award location, and then the research subject would be listed here. It's the code number that's recorded, but it's hard to interpret the code without having that English label of the code to help you. Why you would do this? Well, you can see, for example, in this one, 1410 is not an official code. So if you have something like an entry code table, you can catch things like entry codes that aren't permitted. And you can read more about that on the help of this page as you go through. So I can go through and I can manually add my entry codes if I wanted to, but I can also, this just says that if you started typing something, you're going to lose it. That's okay. I can import it from another place. So maybe I have entry codes that I've already typed in the schema and I'm going to use it in another attribute, but I'm going to upload entry codes I can strip it from another schema if I like what another schema has done. I want to reuse your entry codes, but here I'm going to copy in entry codes from a CSV file. So looking here, this is the CSV file that I'm working with. It's one column long. I just have the code and it's just the code that I'm going to reuse. So I'll show you how that works. So here it is. Here's my entry codes that I'm going to use. The code in the data. This is what appears in the data. In my NSERC example, it would be those numeric values. And in my milking example, all I'm doing is I'm just going to have the code and the English be exactly the same. Let me show you what I mean. In the data, it says voluntary milking system, and the English translation of that is English milking. It is going to be voluntary milking system as well. That's okay. For different languages, it can really matter. And as you saw in the example here with the codes for NSERC, for example, many places are going to sometimes have where the code is different from the label. And the Semantic Engine lets you support that. So onwards then, this is where we're going to start talking about labels. So a label is like, for example, dim is maybe not so easy to understand, and it's actually days in milking. Or perhaps you have other esoteric names, and here is where you can give it a more user-friendly or reader-friendly label. It's not the full description. The description would go here in the description section. And why does this matter? Well, sometimes you will have where it's other languages. So for example, here, maybe you're working with a data set from a Chinese collaborator and all of the attributes are in Chinese and you can't read that, but you can write English labels. Or if you're working with a large international schema, you can have English labels and French labels and German labels, and then everybody can understand and work with the same schema without changing the meaning. So here is where I have filled in a whole bunch of the English labels and the English descriptions. And this can be really helpful. You can go into quite a bit of detail here in order to help your people who are going to use your schema understand exactly where that data came from. Now, on to additional features that we can add. We can describe the data even further. For example, I can say, oh, it's absolutely required that, and there's an animal ID. I can also say format rules. So in the format rules here, this is where you're going to say what is the expected format for the data to be in. I'm going to say that the duration has to be in the ISO standard hours, minutes, seconds. And like the lactation number, like I said, was an integer, and so on. So I can go through and fill out the format rules. Oh, sorry, end time as well. So I've gone through. I filled out the format rules. I can also, for example, cardinality. That help with this page is going to help you understand this. This is when you have attributes where you have an array of entries, you would need to say, oh, you have to pick 2 to 4 entries, for example. That's cardinality. Everything here is grayed out because I don't have any array attributes. So I'm going to remove arrays, cardinality, and then continue on. So here I am at the very end. I can have a look at my schema and I can review. I can clear everything and restart. Everything looks great here, and then I'm going to say finish and export. So when I finish and export, what I'm going to get is I'm going to get a zip file which contains all that information that I put in a machine readable format. And I'm also going to get this README. A README text is just you can keep it with your data, and it's going to say, oh, I'm a schema. Here's a little bit of information about a schema. And it's going to contain these are hashed identifiers, kind of like fingerprints for every part of your schema. And then you can go through here and you can see, oh, the data types. It was date, time, and numeric, and UTF-8 encoding, and it was mandatory for this. And here are my entry codes, etc. So that is the Semantic Engine. And after you have finished everything, then like I said, you'll have the zip file and the README, and you should keep those together with your data so that when you share your data, or go back and reference your data, you will have that information available to help you understand. Thank you very much.